Celestial Brew. What's up everybody, we're back on the Shadowlands beta, and today we'll be taking a look at the new and improved Brewmaster Monk. I'll be going over what's new, what's old, the new covenant systems, and the overall feel of this spec and gameplay. I will also insert the standard "this is beta" disclaimer. This is beta, so tuning canon will change, talents can change, covenant stuff can change. And lastly, a lot of this will be my personal opinion, so do with that what you will. With that out of the way, let's start off with what's new. A lot of things actually. Gameplay wise, it's kinda the same old Brewmaster doing staggered things. However, there's been a lot of unpruning and changes to the spec and well, monks overall. First of all, Iron Skin Brew is no more. Instead, Shuffle has taken its place. This is applied when you use Keg Smash, Blackout Kick, and or Spinning Crane Kick, increasing the effectiveness of stagger by 75%, so pretty much as long as you're punching and kicking, you'll have your stagger increase, instead of chugging away on them brews. Due to this, Purifying Brew charges is reduced to 2, and Celestial Brew has been added, which is a very much improved guard. 24 sec cooldown reduced by anything that reduces Brew's cooldown, grants a massive absorb that lasts for 8 seconds. This absorb can be further improved by purifying stagger damage by up to 200% based on damage purified. If you purify when you have like 1 stagger damage, you get 20% increase, and you can keep purifying until it reaches 200%. You just hit that cap faster if you take a ton of damage and purify it in bigger chunks. And to not get into all the math behind this, because I don't know all of it, but for example, while testing this on an overgeared Brewmaster while leveling, my health pool was around 29k and I could cram out a 60-70k absorb from this on a 24-second cooldown, which you can reduce. It is just ridiculous, and numbers and tuning aside, it's a great addition to our toolkit, solves one of my biggest issue with Brewmasters, which is self-sustain. You're almost always at a healer's mercy, and now we're not, or at least a lot less so, which is just awesome. On that note, Expel Harm has been reworked a bit as well. It's now on a 5-second cooldown and heals baseline 5% of your max HP, and heals for a lot more if powered by Gift of the Ox orbs. So you can now weave in this a lot more often to heal, or save it to get off bigger heal once you've accumulated more orbs. So more self-sustain and a bit of a choice behind it if you wanna heal more often or heal a bigger heal. And due to Blizzard munching away on the member berries, a lot of old stuff is back again. Memba Spinning Crane Kick? Costs 25 energy, smacks up to 6 targets within 8 yards over 1.5 sec, reduced by haste. Actually deals a ton of damage on AoE, and at the moment does more on single target than Tiger Palm. But Tiger Palm reduces brew cooldown, so yin yang. Clash is back as well. 30 sec cooldown, you and your target charge each other, meeting halfway, then rooting all targets within 6 yards for 4 seconds. If Charge and Death Grip ever had a kid, this would be it. The middle ground, that is Clash. Let's hope it follows its earlier iterations and stays just as buggy. Has its uses when it works. Touch of Death is making a triumphant return as well. 3-minute cooldown instantly kills creatures if they have less health than you. Deals damage equal to 35% of your max HP against players and stronger creatures under 15% health. On top of this, it clears stagger damage based on 200% of its damage dealt. Great for questing, finishing adds quickly, or some added burst during execute on bosses. It clearing stagger isn't something to jump up and down for, but I mean it adds something. And Angry Dave is now baseline as well. Invoke Nizao the Black Ox. 3-min cooldown, summon Angry Dave, attacks your primary target and frequently stomps around, damaging all nearby enemies for X amount plus 25% of stagger damage recently purified. While active, 25% of damage delayed by stagger is instead staggered by Angry Dave, lasts for 25 seconds. Great to actually have an offensive cooldown with a small defensive aspect to it as well, and who doesn't love to have this furry ox stamping around? On top of this, Blackout Strike has been replaced by Blackout Kick. 4 sec cooldown grants Shuffle, but currently does not trigger our mastery, so slightly worse than Blackout Strike. Longer cooldown, no mastery. And another big thing is Leg Sweep is 1 yard wider. That's right. Also, Zen meditation is no longer cancelled by moving, so it's finally the tank cooldown it always wanted to be. It is a nice addition though, not gonna lie, but yeah, it doesn't really make Zen med any stronger, it's just less inconvenient. However, dual wielding is back, or will be. It's not implemented on beta, so can't test it, not that there's too much to test. 2 smaller sticks instead of 1 big stick. But this is a nice addition, it makes gearing a bit easier, especially with the personal loot system. Now on to the talents. There's not a ton going on here actually, at least not yet. Some things have been updated to fit changes made to our brews, but mostly it's the same. First change is in the 3rd row. Light Brewing reduces cooldown of Purifying Brew and Celestial Brew by 20%. And Black Ox Brew refills energy, Purifying Brew charges, and resets the cooldown of Celestial Brew. Like I said, it's just to accommodate the brew changes. Light Brewing is still really good, and Black Ox Brew might see some uses if you need an extra cooldown. Next out is the 6th row. Since Angry Dave is now baseline, we've been given Exploding Keg, the old Legion artifact ability. 1 min cooldown, hurl a flaming keg at the target location, dealing a ton of damage to nearby enemies and causing them to miss their melee attacks for 3 seconds, which apparently does not actually do that. It supposedly instead reduces their melee attacks damage by 99%, so it can't be used to sheath auto attack mechanics or reset necrotic stacks, which would have made it extremely valuable during those weeks. One can hope they make it so instead, since that's how it's worded. However, it competes with Rushing Jade Wind in this row, so unless they make it so targets actually miss melee attacks, Rushing will probably be the go-to in all cases. Rushing has been target capped, 6 targets, but 100% uptime deals a ton of damage, so yeah, it's still great. And lastly, the last row. Since Celestial Brew is a thing, Guard has been retired and replaced by Celestial Flames. Drinking Brews has a 30% chance to coat the Monk with Celestial Flames, increasing damage reduction from Breath of Fire by 5%. During this, Spinning Crane Kick also causes a Breath of Fire dot on targets. Now, this one is a conversation piece at best, and it makes one wonder. At first I was like, oh cool, more uptime, works on AoE. Then I remember that Breath of Fire is up for 12 seconds and the cooldown is 15 seconds. So if you RNG proc it, you might increase your uptime by 3 seconds per Breath of Fire. So what you're actually left with is a 5% damage reduction on a 30% proc chance on your brews that lasts for 6 seconds. And I guess perhaps in a dungeon if you proc it then start spinning Crane Kick around picking up packs, but I mean, we're grasping at straws here. Another change is Blackout Combo. It's now triggered by Blackout Kick instead. Does the same apart from Celestial Brew now pausing stagger damage for 3 seconds. So you can kinda pop Celestial, pause stagger, build up massive amounts of stagger, then purify in order to get a much larger Celestial Brew off faster. But in all fairness, High Tolerance is probably going to be the go-to talent, but Blackout Combo will probably see its uses and it is a lot more fun to play with. But yeah, all in all, talent tree is pretty much the same to be honest. Now with that said, how does all of this play out? Really good to be honest. Brewmaster feels even stronger than before with the addition of Celestial Brew and the change to Expel Harm, and applying Iron Skin Brew, or Shuffle as it's called now, by simply during your rotation isn't anything I mind at all. And this is mainly due to Brewmaster getting so much more to press now, to the point where it's almost a bit bloated. And instead of just spamming that Iron Skin Brew all the time, you're kinda changed it to spam Purifying Brew all the time. So the playstyle is still there. Long story short, it's just Brewmaster 2.0, same old Brewmaster playstyle, but with a lot more going on. Stronger toolkit, actually offensive cooldowns, better self-sustain, and a bastard child of Death Grip in charge. With that said, let's take a peek at the covenants that Brewmaster is getting come Shadowlands. Starting off with Night Fae, Feline Stomp, and Soul Shape. Feline Stomp, 30 sec cooldown, strike the ground to expose a Feline for 30 seconds, dealing a bit of damage and applies Breath of Fire to enemies hit. And your abilities have a 6% chance of resetting the cooldown of Feline Stomp while fighting on a Feline. Now, so far I have a kind of hate-love relationship to this ability, ability. All in all, it's just a damage ability. The addition of Breath of Fire can increase our uptime by a little, but as I mentioned earlier, you already have 12 out of 15 seconds off Breath of Fire. So if you're lucky, you add a whopping 3 seconds. As a damage ability, it can shine on AoE, less so on single target unless you RNG proc like crazy. But like I said, on AoE, it gets more done. Especially if you proc a lot, it can turn pretty damn crazy fast. There are, however, a lot of issues with it at the moment, especially as a tank, as it currently spawns a few yards in front of you. So if you stand close to mobs, they don't get hit. And you will almost always be outside of the fail line yourself, which means you're going to have to move and turn mobs or bosses so you can fight in the fail line to get the reset proc. And I mean, as long as melee don't mind getting cleaved, that should be alright. If you can aim it into a wall though, it seems like it will spawn under your feet, so there are small workarounds. I'm hoping this will get changed as it makes it very undesirable as a tank for the aforementioned reasons. Another issue is that if any on-ground effects that you shouldn't be standing in covers the fail line, well then you can't stand in it. But if they at least change it so they always spawn underneath you going out instead of in front of you, it will fix a lot of things with it. Because otherwise it is a beautiful animation, looks crazy if you get multiple procs, and it just branches out around, and in dungeons it can dish out a ton of damage if RNG is on your side. So yeah, I love it and I hate it. I like procs, it looks dope, I wish it worked better and perhaps did something more than just damage. Would be awesome to have some defensive component to it, so it would be more worthwhile on single target, but also overall for any content. Don't get me wrong, damage is awesome, but I just feel like standing in that huge fail line should do more than just damage on initial hit. Plus the reset chance. It's a huge blue shiny fail line, it's gotta do something else. Give it a dot component at least, I mean they're standing in it. Or well, actually how it works right now, they're mostly not standing in it. As for the signature ability, its Soul Shape 1.5 minute cooldown teleports you 15 yards forward and increases your movement speed by 50%. And you can reactivate this every few seconds to teleport again. Lasts for 12 seconds or indefinitely while in a rested area. Looks awesome but not super desirable as a monk. More mobility isn't something we benefit a ton from. The blink can be used to ignore some mechanics, and if there's ever a moment where roll/chi torpedo isn't enough, this will be handy, but most of the times good old chi torpedo gets the job done. Next out we have Necrolord, Bone Dust Brew and Fleshcraft. Bone Dust Brew, 1 minute cooldown, hurl a brew from the bones of your enemies at the ground, coating all targets struck for 10 seconds. Your abilities have a 35% chance to affect the targets a second time at 35% effectiveness as shadow damage or healing. Tiger Palm and Keg Smash reduces cooldown on your brews by an additional 1 second when you smack a Bone Dust Brewed target. On top of this is a brew, so Keg Smash Tiger Palm works on this as well to lower its cooldown. Does a fair amount of damage and healing, scales extremely well on AoE and increases uptime on all our brews. So with proper management you reduce the cooldown of all your brews including Bone Dust Brew by quite a lot. So this is one I enjoy a lot as it incentivizes proper brew management to get the most out of it. Especially combined with one of our Necrolord conduits, Bone Marrow Hops, which increases the shadow damage and healing done by this brew, and when it deals shadow damage or heals it lowers Bone Dust's cooldown, meaning on AoE you'll get this back even more often, further increasing your damage and healing as well as being able to back-to-back celestial brews during big pulls. 10 out of 10 would brew again. Signature ability is Fleshcraft, 2 minute cooldown 4-sec channel which you cannot dodge or parry during. Absorbs damage equal to 20% of your max HP for 2 minutes. Channeling near corpses claims their essence to grow the shield up to 50% of your max HP. Stronger mob, bigger gain. Overall as a tank this is pretty wonky at best. Sure, there's always moments to channel it, but you'll never get the most out of this unless you channel it mid-combat. And you'll lose more health channeling this when a pack smacks you than you gain from the absorb. And seeing as we have Celestial Brew, which unbuffed is twice as big on a 24-second cooldown, not counting in CD reduction from Smash and Tiger Palm, I mean, it's not great. There are a lot of soul binds that power Fleshcraft though, like getting buffs from mobs you Fleshcraft. Each buff currently lasts for 6 minutes, gives you stuff like increased percentages of secondary stats, and they all stack. Now on to the Venthyr. Venthyr gives you Fallen Order and Door of Shadows. Fallen Order on a 3 minute cooldown opens a mystic portal for 24 seconds. Every 2 sec it summons a spirit of your order's fallen, so Fallen Ox for us seems to use Keg Smash, Breath of Fire, Soothing Mist, and Spinning Crane Kick. All in all, this is just a cool looking offensive cooldown as a Brewmaster, but not much more. Gives a bit of healing, does some damage, but that's about it. I'm hoping they tune it or change it to be a bit more worthwhile, cause it really looks dope, but it's not something you press and go, oh yeah, here comes the damage, or something you can use as a proper defensive or healing cooldown as it is right now. Wish there was more to say, but yeah, summons ghost buddies and they smack around. Signature move is Door of Shadows, which is on a 1 minute cooldown, 35 yard range teleport on a 1.5 second cast. Might be good for some skips in dungeons and to dodge some mechanics. Not a panic blink though, but all in all can be very useful. Not really something that Brewmaster benefits greatly from due to them already having incredible mobility, but if it turns out to be useful for a lot of skips in M+, or to dodge certain mechanics in raids and dungeons, then the value will go up by a lot. Lastly, we have Kyrian, Weapons of Order and Summon Steward. Weapons of Order, 2 minute cooldown. For the next 30 seconds your mastery is increased by 10%. Additionally, Keg Smash cooldown is instantly reset, and enemies hit by Keg Smash take 5% more damage from you for 8 seconds, which stacks up to 5 times. So grants you a substantial boost to your mastery, which equates to more damage and survival, as well as a rather big damage increase to all targets hit by your Keg Smash. So at max power, 25% damage increase from all of your attacks, and since Keg Smash is an AoE, it will work great in multi-target situations as well. Downside, debuff lasts for 8 seconds, Keg Smash cooldown is baseline 8 seconds. So with low haste, the window to stack this debuff is small. It's extremely small. Mismanage energy, rotation, and you drop the debuff. Get knocked back or stunned, whatever, it's lost. And dropping it is less than awesome since it takes a long time to stack it up and you only get one shot at it, since you can't just Keg Smash more. Seems fairly strong though, but in my opinion, it's really boring. The most fun part is the instant reset on Keg Smash. Combined with the extra charge on Keg Smash Legendary, and you can smash away 3 of them on pull, which is pretty fun, but other than that, it's not something I find all that interesting as far as a cooldown goes. But hey, it's a cooldown and we ain't got a ton of those. Signature is Summon Steward on a 5 minute cooldown. Now, this little fella gives you 3 vials of Serenity that restores 15% health, but more importantly, removes all curse, disease, poison, and bleed effects on use, which is the true strength of this one. Both in the new raid and the new dungeons, there are a lot of bleeds, for example, that are extremely painful that you can remove with this one. And that's pretty much it for Brewmaster. All in all, it's in a great spot yet again. The few changes they made and the unpruning is mostly for the better. Celestial Brew is just crazy to play with at the moment and feel very rewarding, and if nothing else, I can't properly describe how good it feels to not be at 100% at the mercy of your dear healers, who we all love, but dropping low and getting that absorb off to save yourself or to use it like an active mitigation-ish feels super good. Having a boss use a hard smack and preemptively popping Celestial Brew instead of solely relying on Stagger to save your bacon is great. But yeah, overall they feel really strong. Gameplay-wise, they are more fun than BFA, although a slight bloat on the ability front, but you get used to it. Feels like BFA, but with more to press and a stronger toolkit. Also, did I mention Celestial Brew? Now with that said, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, it really helps me out, and ring that notification bell. Don't forget to check out my Patreon where you can get access to my stanky Discord, and with the good interwebs hooked up, I'm now on Twitch as well, Stanky Gaming. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Celestial Brew.